Riney Winterhalter paints to remember.
We've been together since high school. We went to senior prom together.
He's talking about Terry, his wife.
I was the dumb jock and she was the cheerleader.
He went on to become a police officer. She became a nurse. 3 years ago, doctors removed a tumor from his high school sweetheart's brain. He says she thought she was having food allergies. Turns out she was having seizures. After the surgery, he says she wasn't the same.
All those prayers for the surgery, and then she's kind of slipping away on us, and it was pretty scary.
It got scarier. About 8 months after the surgery, Riney says his wife spent her days depressed, confused, barely able to function. She managed to work, but then one day she came home, went to bed, and didn't wake up. She was rushed to Conway Medical Center where she worked, then was taken to MUSC, and the news wasn't good.
The opinion was that if she did wake up, there would be very little function, and there was a very slight chance that she would wake up to begin with.
Remember Terry's tumor? Well, after it was removed, doctors said a seizure lasting more than a few minutes could damage her brain. Well, when Terry went to bed, doctors say she had a continuous seizure for 14 hours. Riney had to make a decision.
Because the last thing we were told was that the respirator was keeping her alive, that they do periodic tests on how long she breathed on her own.
It wasn't long, and with that in mind, he sat down with her son and daughter at the hospital and wrestled with what to do. It's still hard to talk about what he decided.
Yeah, turn off the life support, yeah.
But not before a wedding. Their daughters, Megan.
That's when my daughter approached me and said we went down to get the license and we want to do it in the room with Mom.
Why?
Because she wanted Mom to be alive when she got married. And she didn't want to wait till we lost her. She wanted Terry to be present with her there, So
Megan was married here in the hospital's chapel. There was a small ceremony in Terry's hospital room, not exactly the way Megan planned it, but as this family learned, sometimes life doesn't go as planned.
It was a glimmer of hope, and the life was going to go on, but it was very hard because I've always imagined our daughter's wedding of a joyous time with my wife and dancing with her.
But that glimmer of hope was gone. Plans were made to have a gravestone at Hillcrest Cemetery. Terry was an organ donor and wanted to be cremated so she could help others live.
I wanted a place, and the kids wanted a place we could go to that we could memorialize her, that we'd have a place nearby that we felt like she was there.
Something more than this painting.
Making that decision about turning off the machine is the hardest decision. I wish that on nobody, because there's so many questions in your mind about whether people are, if you're getting good medical advice, which I was there, but the feeling was, did I give her enough time? If I gave her more time, or is this just for us?
The day of the eclipse, Riney made the decision to pull the plug. He'd give it 2 more days, the day after his son's birthday. Both kids broke down, left the hospital room. It was just Terry and Riney.
At that point, I really felt the Lord prompted me to talk to Terry. I was alone with her, and this would probably be the last time I would be alone with her. So I leaned over her bed and just leaned into her ear, and I told her how much I loved her and that it would be okay. I believed that she was with Jesus already, and that I would be with her again someday, and that I would take care of the kids and take care of her family, and I would do everything I could.
The eclipse wasn't the only strange thing that happened that day.
As I leaned back, her eye opened up. Her left eye opened up, and they had told me that people that are in that state, sometimes they have reflexes, sometimes their bodies jerk or their eyes open, and they said don't be concerned about that. That's just their body reflexes that's just nerves firing. That's not brain activity.
That's what doctors said, but Riney says that's not what God said. Terry's eyes, the ones he'd been painting, didn't just open, they followed his.
And I ran out of the room and I grabbed the nurse and I said, I think she's awake. And he was very professional, was a great guy, and he said, it's okay, sometimes people open up their eyes. And he walked in and he grabbed her hands, and neurological, they yell at you and they put you in pain and just to try to get you to react. And she had closed her eye, And he grabbed her hands. Her hands were up and by her chest, and he yelled, "Terry, Terry!" And she opened her eye again. And he said, "If you can hear me, squeeze my hands." And she squeezed his hands.
Terry was alive. But how?
I said, "What's going on?" And he pointed at the ceiling, and he just kept pointing at the ceiling, like, and I ran over and grabbed her hands. He said, "Don't let go of her. Don't let go of her. Just keep looking at her. Keep talking to her. I got to go get the doctor."
Riney never let go. He may have decided to pull the plug, but he says God decided he wouldn't have to. Problem was, Terry wasn't fully awake. Know the old saying, there's nothing like a mother's love? A son will outgrow a mother's lap, but never her heart.
By this time, my son and his girlfriend came back and ran back into the room, and I said, she's looking at us. And I said, don't let go, don't let go of her hand. So he grabbed her hand, and he kept putting his head on her chest because she couldn't really move her head at the time. She was just moving her eye and looking at him, and he just kept putting his head right in front of her, and they kept looking back and forth.
I saw his head on my chest. That's the first thing I remember.
Yep, that's Terry. Told you that wasn't the only strange thing that happened the day of the eclipse. It was a miracle. Not my words, the words of doctors at MUSC. The words written on Terry's medical chart. Miraculous healing. Terry says she never saw a white light.
When I started responding, I didn't see the Lord. I felt a warmth and a peace that I can't describe.
She says she went from feeling dead for almost a year to feeling alive, really alive. Today, she's fully healed.
I have absolutely no fear of dying. I know lately going to funerals has a whole different meaning to me because I know that there is such a wonderful, I got a glimpse of that feeling.
On a day she missed, a glimpse of an eclipse. But she doesn't mind. She says she got a glimpse of something else that was out of this world that day. Heaven.
There were just so many prayers, and I just feel like that God just wanted to show everyone that he is capable of healing and miracles, and there's no such thing as no hope.
Riney Winterhalter paints to remember. Remember that hope.
I share my story. You can argue, people can argue even with the word in the Bible, the word of God that's written in the Bible, but they can't argue with what happened to me. And it's absolutely unexplainable.
Only if you don't believe. And if you don't, Riney will paint it out for you. Terry will just tell you. She's a walking, talking miracle.
Because there was no other explanation.